Good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Got about 3 inches of snow overnight. We're going to have a white Christmas. As we roll it into the holidays, entertainment served up last night at the GOP debate in Las Vegas. And there were a few news items that came out of it, and we'll get to that. But the entertainment value was abound last night. I thought I was watching a portion of Saturday Night Live. I mean, where else can you get these facial expressions from Donald Trump? Look at this. Wait, is that his thinking cap on? What is this? I mean, he just distorts his face. I mean, I can't listen to whoever is talking because I'm fixated on watching Trump and see what the next innovative facial expression we're going to get. And it didn't stop with Trump. We had the renaming of the head of the RNC. Listen to this.
Now, because I spoke to Reince Priebus, and he assured me.
Who? I thought his name was Reince Priebus. Oh, wait a minute. That was Ben Carson doing an imitation of a former anchor who can't say the names correctly. Whatever. I was just hysterical. I was laughing. There were no serious proposals coming out of anything last night other than a bunch of jabbing. You had Jeb Bush, Jeb Bush is not going to get into double digits of polling. And I think the strategic mistake that Trump made was even recognizing Bush. He's low-hanging fruit. He ain't going to get it. The only thing he's going to do is beat you up, and the establishment is going to feel good about it. But Trump, I thought, held his ground last night. He defended himself on two different issues. That's the Muslims and also going after their families. But the news package that came out last night was that Trump is now saying that he will not run as an independent.
Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am. I'll be honest. I really am. I mean, people have been putting me the question. I really am.
I can applaud. Dr. Carson.
Excuse me. Can I just finish?
Oh, please.
I've gained great respect for the Republican leadership. I've gained great respect for many, and I'm going to even say, in different forms, for the people on the dais. In different forms. But I have great respect for the people I've met through this process. I've never done this process before. I've never been a politician. I mean, for the last 6 months, I've been a politician.
Whoa, wait a minute here. Where's this New York tough guy that's been kicking everybody's ass throughout this whole campaign? He's been driving the ship. Now, all of a sudden, he's got respect for everybody. He was just saying in an interview the other day, if they don't treat him with the proper decor and also respect, that he was going to run as an independent. That's strength. This is what Trump sells. Now he finds that he has a soft underbelly. That all of these guys up here are good guys. He has respect for the head of the RNC. That tells me that Trump will shift when he has to, that he may not be as tough as he sounds. And for him to say last night that people have been putting him to the test, this is no test. The fact is, Mr. Trump, you have to decide whether you want to run as a Republican or if you want to be president. What about all these people across this country that are supporting Donald Trump? They're doing it because he's different. He's not Washington. He's a businessman, and he's going to be tough on ISIS. That's the attraction. He isn't beholden to anybody. Last night, he became beholden to the Republican Party. You can still be a Republican and a conservative and not be beholden to a party. And he missed it last night, and I think his competition missed it. Now, did you notice last night that we really have no military? That we're not doing anything. We're just standing by watching the world go by. And that Obama and Hillary, Hillary and Obama, Hillary, Obama, Obama, Hillary. Their names must have been mentioned 1,000 times last. I lost count at about 40. I mean, it's just nuts. And we have, by the way, unlimited funds to do whatever we have to do to defeat ISIS, and there'll be absolutely no ramifications at home. I think Chris Christie probably had his best outing. I think Rand Paul had his best performance, and he's the only one that did talk about, hey, by the way, we do have to pay for all of this stuff if you're going to do all this international intervention. But the fearmonger of the night goes to the undercard debate, and that was Senator Lindsey Graham, who says that he still wished that George W. Bush was the president of the United States. I about fell off my chair.
I'd like to stop sending $350 billion overseas to buy oil from people who hate our guts, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you like to export natural gas to cut Putin's legs out from under him? Yep. I'm not afraid of a guy riding around on a horse without his shirt. The guy's got a pair of twos, and we got a full house, and he's walking all over Obama. Mike, the surge worked. It worked. George W. Bush made mistakes, but he did adjust. I blame Obama for ISIL, not Bush. I'm tired of beating on Bush. I miss George W. Bush. I wish you were president right now. We wouldn't be in this mess.
He misses Bush. He misses invading countries on false intelligence. That's what you say when you miss Bush. He misses a president who doesn't read his presidential daily briefing and stop a terrorist attack. Now, last night, Lindsey Graham says that we are going to get hit again, that it is going to happen unless, of course, he's president of the United States. Now, there has to be a little correction here. Last night, the Republicans tried to pin everything on Obama. Let's remember two elections that Obama made it very clear that he was going to get us out of Iraq. And he was willing to leave troops in Iraq if we had come to a status forces agreement. And Lindsey Graham is forgetting this. And the reason why we did not have a status forces agreement is because of that nut job and that hood that Bush put in there, Maliki. Maliki wanted sovereignty over American troops. And Obama would not go along with that in any way, shape, or form. In other words, if there was a firefight in Iraq and the Iraqis didn't like the way it turned out, they could put American troops, GIs, on trial in the Iraqi court system. Now, do you want the American military to be at the mercy of another country? This is why we did not have a status forces agreement. Now, is that something Bush would have gone along with? And Lindsey Graham is now telling us how many times he's got frequent flyer miles over to Iraq. He doesn't even know why the hell we don't even have troops there. Why don't we have the status forces agreement? Lindsey Graham, who's a former military judge, who spent 30-some-odd years in the Air Force. He knows the law as good as anybody up there. Does he think it's a good idea, all these troops that he's talking to over in Iraq, to put them under the sovereignty of a foreign country? That's bullshit. And the Republicans, again, last night were lying. They were lying about why we are not in Iraq. We're not in Iraq because the American people wanted to get the hell out of there. The American people realized that international intervention didn't work. The American people knew that it wasn't making us any safer. And the fact is that the American people were not in favor of making sure that our military was under the guidance of Iraqi leadership. It's crazy. You think the United States Marine Corps goes to Camp Lejeune to do all the boot camps so they can go work for freaking Maliki? And the media sits there and doesn't correct anybody or set the record straight. But if you'll notice, that's why Lindsey Graham got so emotional about this last night, because he wanted to make sure the crowd was on what he was saying. The crowd bought a bunch of lies. Last night was fear-mongering. The only story that came out of there last night was that Donald Trump is not going to run as an independent, and Donald Trump showed a soft underbelly after being the New York tough guy. Who won? Who lost? What about Cruz and Rubio going back and forth? What about Trump and Bush going back and forth? And I think Bush did this. He says, I'm not going to win this thing, but I'm at least going to bloody up Trump. Trump ain't going to get away with this. I'm going to smack him down good. I'm going to call him the chaos president, the chaos candidate. Didn't do any good. Bush didn't help himself last night. He's still a Bush, and the American people don't want it. When we come back, we're going to visit with the godfather of the conservative movement, who predicted that Ted Cruz would have this momentum, that Ted Cruz would eventually come out on top. And he's not on top yet, but he is definitely surging. Richard Viguerie joins us. Also coming up, we got a budget. There's not going to be a government shutdown. Jim McDermott, House Budget Committee member, will join us. Stay with us. We're right back on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about Bio Green Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, Bio Green Clean, and the iSave team bring you Ed Schultz news and commentary Monday through Friday. On the heels of the big debate last night, is there going to be a breakout candidate that is seriously going to challenge Donald Trump? Now, the polling in Iowa, very close. One poll shows that Trump has a 1-point lead. Another one says that Cruz is up by 10. The national poll you can't argue with, 41% to 14% to his closest challenger, and that would be Trump, and then to Cruz. But it was Cruz and Rubio who had quite a battle last night. And the conservatives have been watching this closely, wondering when this simmering was going to catch fire. Bottom line here is that the Gang of Eight seems to be haunting Marco Rubio. That the work he did with Chuck Schumer on the Gang of Eight dealing with immigration reform and then reversing his position is something the conservative movement will not allow him to forget. In the meantime, you have got Ted Cruz, who is saying different things about the immigration reform. Let's go to the sparring that they had last night on this issue.
After 10 years in that probationary status where all they have is a work permit, I personally am open to allowing people to apply for a green card. That may not be a majority position in my party, but that's down the road.
There was a time for choosing, as Reagan put it, where there was a battle over amnesty, and some chose, like Senator Rubio, to stand with Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and support a massive amnesty plan.
I'm always puzzled by his attack on this issue. Ted, you support legalizing people who are in this country illegally. Ted Cruz supported a 500% increase in the number of H-1B visas, the guest workers that are allowed into this country, and Ted supports doubling the number of green cards.
I understand that Marco wants to raise confusion. It is not accurate what he just said, that I supported legalization. Indeed, I led the fight against his legalization and amnesty bill. And you know, there was one commentator that put it this way, that for Marco to suggest our record's the same, it is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire. He was fighting to grant amnesty and not to secure the border. I was fighting to secure the border.
Does Ted Cruz rule out ever legalizing people that are in this country illegally now?
Senator Cruz?
I have never supported legalization.
Do you rule it out?
I have never supported legalization, and I do not intend to support legalization.
That was the key phrase in that whole thing. That's the most definition that we've had on Ted Cruz when it comes to immigration. So where does this sit in the conservative movement? Richard Viguerie joins us. He's the godfather of the conservative movement, been around many, many decades around this kind of stuff, and he's the chairman of the conservativehq.com. Mr. Viguerie, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you as always, Ed.
What you predicted on this show some months ago that Ted Cruz would be the one that would break out. He seems to be breaking out. But what did you think of that exchange last night between he and Rubio?
Well, it was a positive for Cruz and a negative for Rubio. It plays to the brand. I mean, he came on the scene as a Tea Party conservative after the 2010 election, but he quickly began to move into the establishment arena, and that Gang of Eight has just, from a marketing standpoint, which is what I do, he's been branded, and he's got that brand over him, and all last night's exchanges back and forth was to reinforce that very negative brand and when you're running in the Republican primaries. So he took a hit last night, no question about it.
So do you think Rubio can rehabilitate himself on this issue with the Gang of Eight baggage that he's got?
Well, the way I see it, Ed, is for all intents and purposes, it's really a three-person race right now. I think Carson is really, the walking dead, so to speak. So it's Rubio, Cruz, and Trump. And I think when the race really gets heated, March, April, I think Trump will slip away, and you'll have a two-person race. Rubio on the establishment side, and Cruz for the conservatives. And when it comes down to a two-person race between Rubio and Cruz, it's not really a fair fight because the conservatives, I think, will run away with that fight. This is a very interesting race. We've not had this in my lifetime, literally in my lifetime, where the establishment vote was so divided at the presidential level. We've got 4, 5, maybe 6 candidates fighting for that establishment vote there, which is only about 25-30% in the Republican primaries. And then the conservatives have always been divided in many ways. This time the conservatives are moving strongly to support Cruz, and so I think by April, Trump will have been gone, and it'll be a two-person race, and I think Cruz at the end of the day will kind of walk away with it comfortably, I think.
Okay. Did Cruz seal it last night with this statement, "I have never supported legalization, and I do not intend to support legalization"? Is that strong enough for you?
Well, it certainly is strong enough for conservatives. I don't know if you could say it sealed it, but it certainly was a help, and I think that it reinforces the dividing line. And unfortunately for Rubio, Trump being in the race this year has really made immigration, illegal immigration, the border control, etc., a big issue in Republican primaries. And so if Trump had never been in the race, Rubio would probably be doing much better right now. But I think as long as Trump is where he is in the polls, it's going to make it very, very difficult to nominate a Rubio. That's the number one issue, it seems like, in this campaign right now. And I don't know how the Republican Party nominates Rubio with that being such a dominant issue.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. He seems to be gaining in the polls nationally. His position on not allowing some Muslims into the country until we, quote, get our act together, also going after terrorist families. He backed that up again last night. But his shift is that he says now that he will not run as an independent, which tells me that maybe he isn't as strong as he appears to be. Or that he's reading the poll numbers and he doesn't have to take that hardline position anymore. How do you see that, Mr. Viguerie?
Well, Ed, it's hard to know what's in Donald Trump's mind. I'm not sure he knows in the morning what he's going to be thinking at the close of the day. But I think that let me just be honest with you. Trump, the potentiality of him going third party is a very, very concerning thing to Republicans. Absolutely. It keeps us awake at night. And I just, who knows? He doesn't know if he's going to go third party right now. I'd say he won't go. I think the odds are against him going third party, but you can't rule it out. And if he, and one of the many reasons I support Cruz is the the only candidate out there, Ed, that can support the 5 principal voting blocks of the Republican Party at the grassroots: national defense conservatives, economic conservatives, cultural conservatives, Tea Party conservatives, and the libertarians. He's the only candidate that can bring all those 5 of those. Plus, he has the best chance of all those candidates of keeping Trump in the party. You notice how he just won't go after Trump at all. He's trying to keep that bridge there. And he's the best candidate to keep Trump in the party as well as Trump voters. So it's looking pretty good right now for
Well, it was
Cruz.
interesting how Trump did not go after Cruz last night after saying previously in the week that he didn't have the temperament and criticized his performance on the United States Senate floor.
Yeah, let me just say that conservatives unanimously just beat Trump up about the head and shoulders for that statement. I mean, he caught a lot of grief for that outrageous statement.
Well, you moved him. I mean, if he caught a lot of grief, you definitely moved him because it was a different position on Ted Cruz last night. He had the world watching, and he didn't say the same thing. Right. And back to the independent run, I mean, I think Trump made it very clear last night he's going to run as a Republican, and there won't be an independent threat to the Republican Party. Is there a possibility that maybe the Republican leadership went to Trump and said, look, we're not going to undercut you anymore. If you win the nomination, we'll support you. I mean, was there some kind of conversation in that regard?
Well, this Republican establishment doesn't confide in me, Ed. So if
what do you make of his reversal on that?
Well, Trump is a lot of things, and one of those things is he's smart. He figures it out that he's running in a Republican primary. He needs Republican voters, and he can't go out there and be flirting with a third-party candidate and expect loyal Republicans to support him. So he's smart, but we don't know what he says today. Who knows what he'll say tomorrow?
All right, but you say he's going to eventually fizzle out.
He will.
And people have been predicting that for months, but he continues to roll in the polls. But you are certainly correct on Ted Cruz. He clearly is number 2 in all of this, and he may win Iowa, although winning Iowa hasn't been the shoe-in for every Republican in the past. You can look at Huckabee and look at Santorum on that. Now, the other thing is the NSA surveillance. There was a real difference of opinion between Rubio and Cruz last night on that. Are you comfortable with this exchange? This is cut 3 on the list. Here it is.
This is not just the most capable, it is the most sophisticated terror threat we have ever faced. We are now at a time where we need more tools, not less tools. And that tool we lost, the metadata program, was a valuable tool that we no longer have at our disposal.
Marco knows what he's saying isn't true. What he knows is that the old program covered 20 to 30% of phone numbers to search for terrorists. The new program covers nearly 100%. That gives us greater ability to stop acts of terrorism.
There is nothing that we are allowed to do under this bill that we could not do before. This bill did, however, take away a valuable tool that allowed the National Security Agency and other intelligence agencies to quickly and rapidly access phone records and match them up with other phone records to see who terrorists have been calling. Because I promise you, the next time there is an attack on this country, the first thing people are going to want to know is, why didn't we know about it and why didn't we stop it?
What about that, Mr. Viguerie? Is that just Senate minutia, or is that a key point in all of this?
No, you're right. It's the Senate minutia. My thought is, Ed, mine eyes glaze over. I talk to a lot of conservatives every day, every week, and this is just not an issue of any importance to conservatives. No one believes that anybody up on that stage last night is really soft on national defense. They've got very different opinions about how to deal with our enemies out there. But that's a Senate issue that has no traction among Republican primary voters.
All right. We'll check in again with you, Mr. Viguerie. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Ed. Bye.
You bet. When we come back, there is a budget deal. There will not be a shutdown. Paul Ryan moves the House to a $1.1 trillion budget deal. And unless there's some kind of torpedo in the water that we don't know about, there's not going to be a government shutdown. Jim McDermott, Congressman from Washington on the House Budget Committee, joins us next to talk about it. What is the deal? Stay with us.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Cleaning, the iSave team. Make it happen right here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Thanks for the view. Thanks for the download. You get it at WeGetEd.com. You also get it at RawStory.com and RingOfFireRadio.com. What a team they have put together. You'll find all of my work on their website as well. All right, we have a budget deal, and there were some compromises last night on first reports. The Republicans got a 2-year delay on Obamacare's medical device tax. Now, before we go to Jim McDermott, I just want to profoundly point out that we do have to pay for Obamacare. There's no free lunch here. This was one of the mechanisms that was put in place in the Affordable Care Act that was going to help pay for the bill. But now they've taken a 2-year delay on it. They've also got a lifting the ban on exporting domestic crude oil. The Republicans always got a bone in the ointment for the oil company, don't they? They can always grease the skids for big oil. And also, they've got the delay of the implementation of Obamacare's Cadillac tax. If you have the best health care product out there, that you're going to be taxed for it. So all of this is put on hold to save a shutdown. So what did the Democrats get out of all of this? Jim McDermott joins us, Congressman from Washington and also a member of the House Budget Committee. Jim, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Ed. How are you?
Very good. First of all, is this a new opportunity with Ryan? Did Ryan get anything done here? Is this formidable as you see it, as opposed to what Boehner would have done?
Well, I think he had the advantage of sort of a honeymoon with his caucus saying, look, you guys, let's get this done and let's get the field clear so we can fight for the election in 2016. I think some people are making compromises and swallowing hard on his side to go along with him in order to make this so he can really ramp up toward the 2016 election.
So you think he sold big picture to his caucus on this?
Yes, he absolutely did. He said there's no point in us, shutting down the government or doing anything crazy like that. Let's make this smooth and get out of here. And then we'll come back and fight.
So what it comes down to is all this rankering over Planned Parenthood being funded, all the countless hours of network coverage and bickering back and forth, that's all for nothing for the conservatives. It's almost as if they were just trying to change the subject until they could decide what to do. What do you make of it?
Well, I think that they're not done with that issue, but they're going to put it into the campaign year. And as we move toward the next budget in September of next year, when the fiscal year starts again, we're going to hear, in the ramp up to that, beginning in the summer, you'll start to hear all this stuff about Planned Parenthood and all that. The thing that's most worrisome about what this bill does is that it is setting the stage for big increases in premiums in 2016 or 2017 in the Affordable Care Act. You are, by doing some of the things that have been done by Cruz, Rubio. Rubio had an amendment in there that takes away the sort of cushion for the insurance companies. So the insurance companies are going to pass the cost on to the consumers in the middle of the election. They will announce their premiums for 2017 right at the end of the 2016 election, and it's a bomb that we lit by this bill today. As we put Rubio's provision in place, you're going to see problems. You saw cooperatives folding. Mm-hmm. That's because we took away the support for insurance companies, and the insurance companies are going to do it by passing it on to the consumers toward the end of the year.
Okay. So that's going to be an election conversation come August, September, and October before the election. And we're going to go through all this again, although it was a story that was kind of kicked under the rug yesterday, the deadline for signing up for Obamacare. Once again, they couldn't handle the number of people that were trying to do it.
Right.
The program is very popular, and it's saving lives. There's no question about it. All right.
No question about it. And the fact is that they are going to try and bomb it right at election time.
Okay. What about kicking the can down the road on paying for it with a medical device tax? I know that there's been a lot of lobbying on the part of the manufacturers to make sure that they don't have to bite the bullet on this, but there's a price to pay on this, isn't there?
As you go down the road, there will be less money, and so the Republican candidates for president will say, we have to repeal Obamacare. It's costing way more than we have coming in, not admitting that, in fact, they've cut away the revenue from the program. I mean, they take away the revenue, and then they go down the street and say, see, there isn't enough revenue to pay for this. It's so transparent.
Well, And lifting the ban on exporting domestic crude as if we don't have enough oil on the world market right now. I mean, the Republicans can't do anything with the budget unless they got a big bone for big oil. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just how do you view that?
Well, they extracted that ban lift because the Democrats said we want to continue to have the programs that will support wind and solar. Alternative energy, and the oil company said, okay, yeah, we'll give you that, but give us the ability to sell our oil overseas where we can sell it for higher prices as crude, and if we sell it as we refine it in the United States, we can't get the same price, and they're giving away jobs on top of it, because if you don't refine it in the United States, you sell the crude right straight through and out the front door, you take the jobs to some other country where they refine it. So it's a job loss, and it's more money for the oil companies in exchange for a little bit of something for solar and wind.
Congressman Jim McDermott with us. He's a member of the House Budget Committee. I can't let you go until I ask you about the big show last night, the GOP debate. I'm sure you're aware that we don't have a military at all. Nobody's doing anything to stop terrorism. I mean, you know, and you're on the House Budget Committee. All these Republicans up there are pontificating on what we're not doing. And if they're president, they, of course, will keep us safe. And we don't have to worry about paying for any of this. In fact, the only one that mentioned anything about the budget last night was Rand Paul. And I give him credit for that. I mean, when it comes to military, they've just got an unlimited budget. Now, if I'm wrong, Congressman, tell me, but there was a sizable increase in the defense budget under President Obama. You didn't hear that last night. All you heard was all these military cuts and how weak we are since the 1950s. I want you to package that for us. What do you think?
Well, I think this last night was an amazing warmongering debate. There was endless warmongering. Rand Paul stood out by the fact that he did not join in that. There was almost no recognition of this all started under George Bush Jr., it's sort of like Obama arrived and suddenly the world fell apart.
Yeah.
And this problem was handed to him by Republicans under Bush. And last night you would think that he had done everything wrong. I think the president has done the best job you can in trying not to get us into a new next world war. You heard people talking about, are you willing to shoot down Russian planes? Are you willing to bomb villages flat? Yeah. I mean, they're killing. The conversation was horrendous if you're listening to it as a Muslim and thinking they're going to bomb our city flat like they did Leipzig in the Second World War. This was a horrible debate, but on the other hand, it was good to demonstrate to the American people what the Republicans are really all about. They're about making war.
They are about making war, and they just can't get enough testosterone thrown out on the screen, that's for sure. But here's the one thing that really got me, Congressman McDermott, was how disingenuous Lindsey Graham was last night. We do not have forces in Iraq because the American people voted for Obama. They wanted out of Iraq. He was elected and then reelected, and he never changed his position. We will end the war in Iraq. That was very clear during the election. The second thing is, and most important, is that we didn't have a status forces agreement because we would have lost our sovereignty, and if there had been a firefight that the Iraqis didn't like, American GIs would be where? They would be in an Iraqi court defending themselves, and Obama and the military leaders were not going to go along with that. Now, am I wrong on that, or am I right on that? And I can't believe that Lindsey Graham last night is saying that he still wishes George W. Bush was president of the United States. I mean, it's a status forces agreement that didn't happen because our troops would have lost their legal sovereignty, correct?
Absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. The president wanted to keep some people in Iraq. But in order to do that, you have to have an agreement between our government and the Iraqi government on status of our forces. Are they going to be tried under American law, or are they going to be tried under Iraqi law? And the Iranian government of Iraq said, we will not give you a status of forces agreement. So the president, the only thing he could do to protect his troops was take them out of the country.
Yeah, exactly. We would have seen American servicemen in Iraqi courts and at the mercy of Iraqi defense. And that's unbelievable. And I cannot believe, of all people, Lindsey Graham, a lawyer and former military judge, allows that to slip out. And then, oh, by the way, says he wishes Bush was still president. I mean, talk about losing all credibility. Jim, have a great holiday, Congressman. Great to have you with us, Congressman McDermott.
We'll see you after the first of the year.
All right. Thank you.
Same to you.
This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. We're back tomorrow.